I slept last night by 12 a.m. and I woke up this morning by 7 a.m. but I only had 6 hours of sleep. Now you're probably asking, how is that even possible, or what do I even mean? Well, it is that time of the year in the Netherlands, which is the season of daylight savings time. Daylight savings time is abbreviated as DST. It's one of the things that I learned last year after relocating to the Netherlands. I mean, I've always heard about daylight savings time. I never really knew what that meant or what it was all about. Later on in this video, I'll explain the idea behind DST, but first, let me talk about what happens in DST. In the period of daylight savings time, the clock in a particular country that acknowledges DST, that clock changes. For example, in Netherlands, that clock changed today. So what happened was that 2 a.m. fast forwarded to 3 a.m. So once it was 2 a.m., the standard clock for the whole of Netherlands became 3 a.m. And that's why even though I slept by 12 and I woke up by 7, I had already lost 1 hour in between since 2 a.m. became 3 a.m. And it's going to be like this up until I think the 29th of October. And what happens on that day is that I think 3 a.m. would now become 2 a.m. So if I sleep by 12 a.m. and I wake up by 7 a.m., I would have had 8 hours of sleep because I got 1 extra hour in between. Now, the standard time zone used in the Netherlands is CET, CET, Central European Time, but during DST, the time zone that is used for better communication is CEST, CEST, which is Central European Summer Time. Also note that the idea of daylight savings time does not only apply to the Netherlands, it applies to few other countries. In these countries, it happens at different times. For example, in a particular country, it could happen maybe from January 1 a.m. to October 3 a.m. So what is the idea behind daylight savings time? Well, the idea behind DST is so that you can have more daylight as the weather becomes warmer, and the weather becomes warmer during the summertime. So during the summer you have daylight savings time, and during the winter everything goes back to default. I won't go into the history of DST in this video, like who started it, how many countries acknowledge it, and all this kind of stuff. So during the winter in the Netherlands, here is what happens with the weather. And this was also surprising for me because coming from Nigeria, from 7 a.m. you begin to see daylight up until 6 p.m. From 6 p.m. it begins to get dark. But when I came here during the winter period, I saw something else. You only begin to see daylight from somewhere around 9 a.m. 7 a.m., 8 a.m. it's still dark. From 9 a.m. you begin to see daylight. And then by 5 p.m. you begin to see darkness already. From 4:30 p.m. it's already going dark. Now this is during the winter. What happens during the summer is an entire opposite. In the summer, from 6 a.m. you begin to see daylight. In fact, even from 5:30 a.m. you begin to see daylight. And this daylight goes for as long as up until 9 p.m. So how does daylight savings applies to this in summer? Well, in the summer, you're getting daylight from, let's say, from 6 a.m. to like 9 p.m. The concept of daylight savings is so you can have more daylight during the day, like probably after work or something. So by moving that time forward, then you have from 7 a.m. up until 10 p.m. of daylight, which means even after work by 5 or by 6, you still have some time with daylight which you can use for whatever activities you're interested in. I hope the concept of daylight savings time makes sense to you so far. Well, it has its benefits and as well its disadvantages. Let's start from its benefits. The first pro that I have here is that, for a country like this, which is a cold country by default, you see people really appreciating that summertime where they can go to the beach, where they don't have to use garments, coats, layers, and all of these things because of cold. During that summertime is very much appreciated. The second benefit I have here is energy savings, and energy savings here is more like, when it is night and you need to do things in your house, you need to use artificial lights. But during the day, you can simply open your curtains, open your windows, and you have enough light and you don't have to use electrical energy that you would use for artificial light. Well, with the concept of daylight savings, from 7 a.m. when it is already day, when you would have most likely woken up until 10 p.m. you most likely don't have to worry about artificial light because you can easily use the light from the weather. Third benefit I have here is also still related to the first benefit, is you can have more outdoor activities after work. During the winter, after work, it's already dark, and I know few people would still go out and do stuff, but after work, having that extra 4 or extra 5 hours of daylight can make it easy for you to do other activities you're interested in. Well, let's move on to the disadvantages. The first disadvantage is that schedules and meetings can be affected. I remember one time I was going through my calendar, and then there was this meeting that I had with somebody which was supposed to happen by 8 p.m. And recently I was going through my calendar, seeing my meetings, and then I saw that this meeting was 9 p.m. and I was surprised. I almost sent a message to this person like, did you reschedule our meeting? But then I remember, oh, daylight savings time, that is why it's 9 p.m. for me, but it is still 8 p.m. for that person. So it can actually affect all of these schedules, and if you don't plan properly during this period of the year, you might miss meetings. I read few things online where people actually missed some meetings, both at the workplace, official or even unofficial meetings. The second disadvantage I have is that sleeping cycles can be disrupted. There are people who may have sleeping cycles where by 11 p.m. for example, their body already knows that it's time to sleep, and by 6 or 7 a.m. their body already knows that it is time to wake. Their body have adjusted to that. Now with things like daylight savings, that sleeping cycle is disrupted, because by 11 p.m. when your body is supposed to inform you that you should sleep, that would actually be, I think that would actually be 12 a.m. I mean, I'm really confused with this calculation, but anyways, your sleeping cycle will be disrupted once there is that change in the time. And the third disadvantage I have here is communication generally with people in different time zones. When I came here, I knew the time zone was set, and set is similar to GMT plus 1, which is where I come from in Nigeria. So if I'm calling my family, my friends, anyone by 9 p.m, I know it's 9 p.m. for them. But now that the time has changed, I also need to adjust my calling time. So if I want to call them by 9 p.m. their time, then it has to be 10 p.m. my own time. You see, in periods like this, there's a lot of adjustments. Now these are the disadvantages I have so far, but if you go online, you would see so many other things. You would see debates of like, is DST important? Do we really need it? Even when you talk about energy savings, the appliances now that consumes less energy, you'd see all of this debate. Now, I don't know if DST is going to stay forever, and also I don't know if maybe in the next few years Netherlands is going to be like, instead of moving just 1 hour, why don't we move 2 hours? I don't know the future of DST, but I hope that with this video you now understand the concept of DST. And let's say you move to a country like the Netherlands, or in a different country where their clock changes during the year. I hope you now have a better idea of what happens, and then you are not caught off guard. So very briefly, the concept of daylight savings time is saving the day, and I hope you get the point that I'm trying to actually make. Daylight savings, saving the day.